Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leading Futures Where All Women Thrive. This educational panel is hosted by WHOLESCHOOLS International for this very exciting third edition of WEF Women Economic Forum Iberoamérica. Greetings to our guest panel speakers from Cuchara in Colorado, from Denver, Colorado, and also from Cartagena in Colombia. And a warm welcome to our viewing audience. I am Andrea Ferrari, founder and CEO at WHOLESCHOOLS International, a leading global organization specialized in innovation, well-being, equity, and happiness in education. It is an honor for us to be here with you today. And before we begin our panel discussion, we would like to give thanks to Michelle Ferrari, president of WEF Iberoamérica, alongside Dr. Harbin Aurora for her inspirational work worldwide, and in particular this year to Expansión and Expansión Mujeres for their strategic partnership and alliance with the Women Economic Forum. It is in our agenda today, we have framed around transformation and leadership. Again, leading futures where all women thrive, beginning at the heart of our educational communities, letting go of old practices to elevate our young female and male voices to address equity, to develop spaces that promote collaboration and empower the female voice. I want to give a warm welcome to our first panel expert, Ms. Jill Akers-Clayton from Cuchara, Colorado. She is a senior learning designer at Fielding International. Jill has worked in over 30 states in the US and over 20 countries around the world. She is the author of Developing Natural Curiosity Through Project-Based Learning, an expert in learner-centered environments, school cultures, and community engagement. Jill is a disruptive optimist. Welcome, Jill. And with that, I'd like to start our first conversation point. There is an African proverb that reminds us it takes a village to raise a child, whereby an entire community of people must interact with children for them to experience growth in a safe and healthy environment. So what does this imply as we strive to meet the needs of all girls and of those who support them? And in your words, Jill, if strong is the new pretty today, what should our villages look like in order to raise strong and confident women?
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here alongside such amazing, powerful women who I've had the opportunity to work with, and I consider part of my growth tribe. And I think when we really envision strong as the new pretty, looking at Katie Parker's book, which is an inspiration to my own two daughters who are 13 and 10, is that when we think about what this village looks like, it includes men, women, fathers, daughters, brothers, cousins, but everybody in a learning community that breaks open the walls in our learning environments and really creates collaborative, open-ended spaces that allow women and girls to share their voices. When we think about reimagining learning environments and reimagining curriculum and designing and what the learning experience is for young women, for girls, we have to break the boundaries, give them voice, show them that movement and fluidity, whether that's gender, whether that's physical movement through spaces, but being able to navigate and move throughout spaces with the opportunity to share who they are, what their desires and aspirations are, in a way that's not focused on pretty, but it's focused on strong. And that begins with, I see you, I hear you, I don't see your pretty, I see who you are. I see your beauty is from the inside out. I see your strength is your heart as well. And building that into spaces is our priority.
How wonderful. How wonderful. Thank you so much for inspiring us and reminding us that we need to engage in this reimagining of our learning environments, breaking down boundaries and listening to women's voice. Our focus is on strong and are looking from within. And so we go now with Jennifer in order to stretch this point, yes, from the perspective of someone who has founded learning principle strategies to provide professional development and authentic support around student-driven global learning experiences in schools worldwide. Jennifer is also the author of the Global Education Guidebook, and it is now on to her second book, soon to be released. Jennifer, as a former head of Gimnasio Los Cabos in Colombia, she is here to guide us today as an expert in equity practice within our schools. Welcome to you, Jennifer, from Denver in Colorado.
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's good to be here.
Thanks, Jennifer. And our guiding point for you, let's talk about a little bit what old practices do we need to let go of so that we can reimagine, as Jill was saying. Let's begin to reimagine. Reimagine how we can foster the skills that young women and men will need to be positive leaders of change.
Well, so I'm working on a new book with Capono Ciati around this idea of what it looks like to reach full potential with every single child, because that's really what we mean when we say equity, right? Is that every single individual in a schoolhouse is having the opportunity, and adults as much as students, of course, is having the opportunity, as Jill said, to be heard, to be seen for who they are, to be valued for their strengths and supported through the growth that they need to accomplish to improve on areas of weakness. We've been thinking a lot about learning systems as more of a landscape or an ecosystem rather than what the Industrial Revolution left us, which is an education that looks an awful lot like a factory line or a racetrack, right? With one fixed starting point and one fixed ending point. And one of the things that we're concluding through the research we're doing is that student agency and protagonism are actually really the core of all of this. In other words, if students are owning their learning process, if they are motivated to take on significant challenges, if they feel supported to work on the things that they want to work on, but also really seen for who they are in every regard, whether that's cognitive, cultural, gender identity, any of those things, that's actually what creates the deepest sense of equity, when every student really owns their own process and their own learning. We use that word student agency sometimes to just mean student choice, and choice can be a very limited thing, actually. We're not talking about choice in the sense that the teacher comes in with 3 options and the kids get to pick between them. We're talking about kids being able to articulate who they are, what matters to them, what they aspire to, and really making sure that we understand the context that they come from, that we work with them to define where they're headed and what the goals are, and that we really develop a personalized pathway that still accomplishes the academic goals, but that does so in a way that's centered around who that child really is. This way of thinking is I don't want to say against the norms necessarily, but I wouldn't describe it as the most common role for girls when it comes to Latin American culture particularly, but all over the world, frankly. There are a lot of cultures where this idea of agency and protagonism is not something that we share with girls. It's not something that we expect of girls. We expect a certain level of compliance in a lot of schools from girls, and the more independent girl who thinks for herself, who has her own opinion and who voices them is also often described as bossy, where a boy who demonstrates the same traits is described as a leader. So I think a lot of what we need to do is shift a mindset, right? Really focus in on this idea that we want to build independent thinking, strong opinions, but also the ability to really reflect on other people's perspectives, to take those into considerations and to build something better. So in that sense, I think the school needs to mirror the world beyond the school as well. But I also think that the school has the opportunity to sort sort of rewrite the rules of the society at large and be a place where girls feel seen and heard and supported in every regard, and where we know that we're really working from kids' strengths, making sure that we leverage them, and we're not limiting young people with our perceptions or our biases about what we believe they're capable of.
Mhm.
What a wonderful response, Jennifer, that complements what Jill has been saying and takes it one step further as we look at this in light of students. I love this idea of the student being a protagonist. I love this idea about our learning system shifting to being more of ecosystems or landscapes that we can co-create. And I love, above all, that equity has been presented to us in light of children reaching their full potential, working as a starting point from their own strengths, what motivates them, what engages them. And this is just precious when we hold the child at the center of everything we do. And when our schools make their decisions based on what is best for the child, then we cannot go wrong. And that is a treasured idea. Thank you, Jennifer, for reminding us of this. And with that, I want to turn to Gabriela, who's going to speak to us from her area of expertise. Gabriela Gonzalez Pacheco, who is not only the director of programs at WHOLESCHOOLS International, but she has over 30 years experience leading and consulting from schools. She's an expert in social emotional learning and well-being in education. She's here to guide us today with her expertise in leadership, discussing the perspective of the school administration and in the supporting the roles of teachers throughout this transformation. What would be, Gabriela, the role of the school admin in supporting teachers to ground equity within our schools?
Thank you, Andrea. Well, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that we all know that education can be a tool for change. We know that the change that we want in society depends on the work that schools engage on. And I think the biggest problem here is that maybe, as Jill and Jennifer have explained very well, it's just teachers may have a very clear idea of what they want to do, and they can be very close to the problems because they deal in the day-to-day with the students. And we know that we need to redirect many of the efforts. However, the biggest problem is that when we talk about the efforts that happen in schools, is that we need to recognize that it's like a great big puzzle. And within this puzzle, there are certain key elements that will help to enhance the effort of all the players that are at play. And here we're talking about, of course, the role of the teachers, which is incredibly important, but we need to recognize that the teachers will not be able to do this if they do not have the support from the administrators. And unfortunately, the administrators many times feel the pressure that comes from the parents. And this pressure that comes from the parents sometimes inhibits, the efforts that the school maybe knows they need to do, but they don't necessarily feel that they have the full parent backup. And when we talk about this relationship of the schools with a collaboration with the parents, it should be a collaboration, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way. And what ends up happening is that schools, instead of changing the cultural values, as when Jill used this beautiful image of the village, the village that we know what it should look like, but however, we end up the schools just recreating the values that the culture has, instead of being this force for change that starts inserting values that we know are very much needed right now if we want to address the different problems that we are facing in society. So when we talk about administrators, and you said it very well when you started at the beginning, the emphasis on transformation, the key has to be in leadership. And the administrators are the leaders of the school. They are the ones who support the teachers, the ones that help them attain the tools that they need, and just work with them throughout all this effort. And they are the connection between the school and the families, where they can also help parents be educated about what the school is trying to achieve and how the parents need to create this role in a way that is complementing the efforts, and then we can successfully then say, yes, we are changing the, you know, the landscape of society, and we are being able to just have, you know, adults who started through experiences in school, you know, as children, where they feel empowered, where they feel respected, where they have learned how to recreate a society that is much more geared towards equity and all these amazing things that we are talking about, such as well-being and so on. So I think the role that administrators play is key, and it's just a question of figuring how that leadership needs to be played in order to just guide everyone towards where we need to go.
Thanks, Gabby, for that reminder. Of course, the leaderships in that leading position is key to making these changes sustainable, right? Because what we do want is to have sustainable change that can face the short and, of course, the long-term consequences. And it is key to do this in order to create a future where we can have our leaders that thrive, our women, yes, that have been empowered and are growing confident in their voices. And you brought up a very important point, Gabriela. To achieve the support from the administration, we need a collaboration with our parents. And for this, our next guest speaker, dear Amaris Salazar from Colombia, head of school from Avante Global in Cartagena, academic director at Gimnasio Los Cabos in Chía. She is a leader in K-12 education, a leader in school culture, curriculum development, and educational innovation. We're honored to have her here and learn from her today, as she is the founder of a school that was born during the pandemic, revolutionizing the way that students learn, shifting the paradigm in education. So we want to welcome Amaris, as she's going to speak to us a little bit more about today, about this shift in paradigm and how we can work as a school in partnerships with mothers, with parents, and caregivers to support our learners through these challenging times now and in the future. Right, Amaris?
Yes, thank you, Andrea. Very, very true. Gabby made an excellent point in terms of partnering with parents. I've been super fortunate to be able to open 3 different schools in different parts of the world, and what we know as educators, and what I personally have lived as a mother, now a grandmother, watching my oldest daughter be a rock star educator herself, raising 2 young children. We want to be able to do it all, and we can do so, but it's really about thinking about how, as a school system, can we set our parents, our caregivers, and particularly our mothers up for success. Ones who want to be everything to their children, as well as in their career and in their personal lives. And so it's really about relationships where we are true partners, in that we meet families, we meet mothers where they are, what they bring to the table, with the skill sets that they have, and with the available time and energy and expertise. We get to know them from before the time they even enter school with us, to be able to set up supports from all of the different areas, be them academic or social emotional, and making sure they have a team that communicates with them regularly. It's important for them to also feel open to know themselves well enough in terms of what skills they need to work on, and that we set a very robust calendar of events and workshops and opportunities for them to learn by doing, right alongside their children, so that they can feel confident in being able to support them. I think one of the things that we've learned during this pandemic is about adaptability, is about flexibility. We're very fortunate to be building our school from the ground up, and so one of the things that is built right into our space space is what we call a parent pavilion. That is very much like a WeWork space. It is designed for parents to come, to spend as much time as they need to there, to have internet access, to be able to conduct meetings, to be able to collaborate, to network together right there at the very place where their children are also learning. It's about creating opportunities for them to form support with other parents, support with educators and other people within the community. It's about meeting their needs right here at the school. It's about us being flexible. During this pandemic, we've had to be super flexible and learn that meetings don't necessarily have to be at the school. We have a wide variety of ways in order to be able to meet with parents, to communicate with them. There might be some parents who prefer a WhatsApp text message, some parents who are on email all day and prefer that, some that actually really do want a phone call. And it's about knowing them so well that we are able to, at any moment, know what it is that they need. It's also about giving them permission to be a parent first. First and foremost, it's so important for parents to feel like it's okay if they don't know all the answers. It's okay if they are not successful at something, whether that be parenting or otherwise. But being a parent first and knowing that it's okay to not turn in some homework, to not have to feel like they have to connect with their child virtually if their child isn't feeling it that day, to not have to have that tantrum with the child because the child is really not going to have that opportunity that day to learn in that way. And it's about being open and flexible and learning with them. And again, being a true partner is about meeting their needs where they are, just like we meet the students with their needs where they are. And only working together can we allow parents, particularly mothers, to be all that they can be, and that we can grow together and provide those opportunities for success for all students.
Amazing, Amaris. Thank you for tying this up so neatly from the different four perspectives and grounding it on the collaboration, the community, and I love this word, the partnerships, and being a true partner and what that entails. I'd like to turn now to the second part of our panel because we've got about 12 minutes left. So goody, we're all going to have time to give some extra comments, do a little bit of wrap up. And I'd like to begin by refocusing on our title for the discussion today, which was Leading Futures Where All Women Thrive. And I want to come back a little bit to Jill, who's talked about reimagining our spaces for collaboration that will help us to nurture, to care for, and to empower the voices of our young women, men, of course, included. But so Jill, what advice can you leave us with today in terms of reimagining our educational communities, reimagining these villages, starting from the bringing down those walls, right? And just leaving a lot of room open for listening to voices. How do we start? First steps.
I think reimagining the rectilinear shape of a building and double-loaded corridors where classroom doors open, groups of students funnel in, and the doors closed, and 90% of the creativity of that space is held by the teacher who owns that space. So what are the first walls that we can knock down to reimagine what student ownership over learning looks like? And how do we do that not only literally, but figuratively? And so part of a lot of the work that we do at Fielding International is to reimagine the mindsets for teachers. How do I share my space? How do I collaboratively work in workrooms that are designed for immediate professional development with my peers? How does that change and shift the village. And that means we're providing a different type of school environment where we have small learning rooms, seminar spaces, learning studios, but these learning commons where students begin the learning process. And then students and teachers appropriate and select the types of learning spaces that are aligned to the thinking that students are doing. So we're really allowing students agency and fostering metacognition in the ways in which they select their own learning environments. And what that does is support women to know that they can make those choices. They can make those choices and build their self-esteem and self-confidence by understanding who they are as a learner. And that's the first step in reimagining what our physical village will look like, and for helping adults reshape the way that they value the beliefs that our young learners have developed at such an early age.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jill, for making such a complex concept very tangible and real, starting from the very physicality of our schools, our corridors, our classrooms, and for giving us those guiding first steps into shifting and reimagining our villages. I'd like to move on next to Jennifer. Jennifer, you spoke a lot about ensuring that both boys and girls are reaching their full potential, hence, striving to reach equity. What would be your advice, Jennifer, in terms of elevating student agency to honor all students? What should we begin to do in our communities?
That's a great question, Andrea. I mean, I think the core is just we have to stop talking and start listening. What Jill just said is so important. If teachers are holding 90% of the ownership, the creativity, the voice in the classroom, there's no way that our young people are going to step up, right? So, in expeditionary learning, they often say that as soon as the adult steps back, the kids step forward, and that's so true. And we know it's true. Anyone in education knows it's true. So I think the first step is a very simple change in mentality, which is I'm not here to talk, I'm here to listen and learn with, not teach at. And yes, I have to have a certain amount of control over what happens, but really what I'm doing is trying to foster young people who find ways to control their own process, right? Who have the skill to do so. And I wanted to make a connection too to something that Amara said. I think parents are an incredible gift, but they can also be that element that keeps a young girl from advancing in this regard, right? If parents are at home solving every frustration for a girl or for a boy, or for any child, right? They are taking away the opportunity to learn how to handle their own frustrations, right? Every time they solve a problem for them before the child has tried to figure something out for themselves, I think that they're limiting how far that kid can go. And so I think a big piece of this really is parents, as much as teachers, taking a step back, far less often offering the solution or the answer, and far more often saying, ooh, what a great question. How do you think we could find out? Or, ooh, what a fascinating challenge. How might we solve it together? So that students, all kinds of students from all backgrounds, all cognitive levels, really feel like they are seen as whole people. I think, personally, and I know that Amaris and Jill both agree with this thinking, we have a connection with project-based learning in particular as one of the tools that can get you there, that can create those multiple pathways towards a common goal, but with a recognition of the very varied voices, passions, purposes among these young people in our spaces. So when it comes to how we do it, that's one of the hows, I think, is really doing challenge-based and project-based learning, where kids are working on real issues. And if there are, equity challenges in the community around them, that they're engaging in that and they're working on it. If there are equity challenges inside their school, that they are the advocates for change inside their community, and that we have them at the table every time we're making big decisions when it comes to the future of the school, so that they become people who know that they have that power and that ability.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, for that piece. It really does enlighten us and remind us in how taking a step back will always allow our kids, our students, to take that necessary step forward. And how we shouldn't always shield them and put them in this bubble, which inevitably robs them of their own efforts in striving, in becoming resilient and adapting, which is the way forward, right? Not having all the answers, not knowing all the answers, but being able to critically think and construct their own solutions to problems and situations and face adversity in a way that we have been doing in pandemic, right? So of course, what a great reminder, Jennifer. And having 5 minutes left, I'd like to turn it over now to Gabriela and then of course Amaris to give us their 2-minute wrap-ups before we conclude with our very exciting panel on leading futures where all women thrive. So Gabriela, your advice or just beginning steps for administrators as we, really take care of our teachers and work with our parents to fit in this piece of the puzzle.
Of course. Well, I think the main focus should be I'm taking a little bit of the idea of what Amaris was saying, is prioritizing relationships. Because we were saying many times it's not a question of not having a very clear idea of where we need to go within the school and with our students. It's just being able to have the resources that we need. And I'm not talking resources in an economic sense, although it can be an issue, but I'm talking about the support and the collaboration that is needed in order to achieve it. Because we do know that no matter what the school wants to do, if the parents are not on board, then the school will not be able to achieve it, no matter what that goal looks like. And so that's really, really important. And to be able to do this is to just improve in that relationship so that it does become a partnership and it does work that way, in the sense that everybody is sharing that vision of leadership and empowerment for the students and for girls, to grow in this way. If we do not create this shared vision, it will be impossible to do. So I think, talking about the first steps is just valuing or recognizing the value that relationship, that collaboration that needs to be built, because it does not just happen. It needs to be, actively nurtured, I guess,
Yes.
and is the only way to achieve it. I think so. That would be it.
Thanks, Gabriela, for opening the door now for Amaris' closing comments. And dear Amaris, you began your discussion focused on the parents and the partnership. I really want to ask you one more thing. In this idea of women in struggle and how they want to be it all, what question can they begin to ask of schools, all right, in order to receive that necessary support?
Yes, absolutely. It is all about asking the right questions. How privileged are those who get to choose which schools their children go to or which educational setting they're in? Not everybody gets to do that. And so if you don't have that privilege of being able to choose a school like the ones we're describing now, then where can you go for that support, knowing that you would like a particular outcome for your child? I think it starts with building that relationship directly with your child's educator, the person who is really shaping their day-to-day. Finding out what are the non-negotiables in terms of that learning environment, and then finding out what flexibility there is. I always find that when parents come with ideas and solutions and ways that they can also provide their expertise and their ideas to the table, schools are much more open to accepting ideas of doing things maybe a little bit differently. And so that's where I would begin. Asking the questions, building the relationship directly with that person who is with your child every single day, and then being a model for other parents to say, look, let's try just doing this little piece differently and let's see what happens.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Amaris, for bringing us all back to that very concept of this idea of belonging, of working towards the same goal, relationships. It brings to mind the acronym of TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. And it's certainly a part of the work that we're doing at WHOLESCHOOLS, the betterment of education for a better world. And we're here at WHOLESCHOOLS, transforming education one school at a time and transforming the lives of children, one child at a time. And I think we've left our viewing audience with a lot of good stuff to go and take forward, take the next steps. We want to thank all of you for participating in this third edition of WEF. Very proud to have you on board. What a powerhouse of women, woo-woo! And with that, our closing time has come. So we look forward to seeing you in the next edition of the WEF. Un abrazo a todos desde México. Woohoo, we did it.